Hello, I am Annelieke Bansky and I'm founder and CEO for Tacticom. Hope to see you soon at the Revenue Manager, the series. Looking forward to it.
Hi all, I'm Guy Gash of Fornova. See you soon at the Revenue Manager, the series.
Hi all, I'm Claire Hemphill, Head of Revenue and Systems Management at Whittlebury Park. I look forward to seeing you soon at the Revenue Manager, the series.
Hey, I'm Eric from Oki. See you soon at the Revenue Manager, the series.
Oh, hey you all. Greetings from Finland. My name is Hanna Lack. I am the founder of the Nordic Revenue Forum. See you soon at the Revenue Manager, the series. Ciao.
Greetings, everybody from Vail, Colorado. This is Andy Broderick from Infor at 10,550 feet. Looking forward to a great series and to seeing everybody at the Revenue Manager. Be well, stay healthy, and don't ever ski in jeans.
Hi, my name is Angelo Directo from SHR in Houston, Texas. And I'm looking forward to pitching to you all at the Revenue Manager, the series. See you soon.
Hi all, I'm Joyce DeKalb of Ideas Revenue Solutions. See you soon at the Revenue Manager.
Hey everyone, this is Len Wasserman from Sendai. On May 20th, I'll be part of the Revenue Manager, the series, doing a presentation on productivity. Hope to see you there.
Hello everyone, I am Nikki van den Broek from Get Into More, reporting live from sunny Antwerp, Belgium. I am thrilled to be hosting a masterclass where we will reimagine meetings. I hope to see you there for the Revenue Manager, the series.
Hello, my name is Nir Dupler and I'm the CRO at Fornova, and I'm looking forward to see you all at the Revenue Manager, the series.
Hi everyone, I'm Ujjwal Suri with Fornova, and I'm looking forward to meeting everyone at the Revenue Manager series.
Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to the 5th episode of the Revenue Manager series. After 3 weeks of break, guys, it was too long. I couldn't wait so long, guys. And I'm so happy to see my friends again. I see already so many people connecting here on LinkedIn, YouTube and Facebook. And yes, good day, Federica, Harry, Diego and Chris. How are you guys?
Hello. Fantastic, very well. You can see from my background that it's an explosion of joy today for coming back live.
Amazing swimming pool you have, Federica, on your background. That's very cool. I'm going to see this place very soon.
I love that hotel, Federica.
I know.
You know it. Please come to Ibiza to join that hotel. So thank you to be here to all of you and enjoy the day. We will speak about profitability, so we will have a great day today.
Harry, good afternoon.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here again, and nice welcome to our audience. We had some great numbers for registrations today. What I think is positive is, we're getting into the summertime and we are seeing all over the world getting some recovery going for our industry. I think that's a good sign for all of us. Europe is opening again. In the US, we see a lot of good vibe going on. So I think we're getting into new waters here, which is very positive for all of us.
Fantastic. What about you, Chris? How's it going in Canada, right?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. We're a little bit early in our day over here. It's the heat wave is over, so that's fantastic. It was a lovely, cool breeze out there yesterday. North America is starting to come back. The US, some US markets are really exploding and have been for a while. So I think that's a perfect moment to take a step back and look at what can we do to make sure our business will thrive in these upcoming months. So focusing on profitability, net revenue, and that's really important, and I think more important than ever now.
Sure. So let's look quickly at the agenda of the day. I'm going to share my screen. Federica, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's going on today.
With great pleasure. Also because this topic is really important and very close to revenue management, although some people could think revenue management is only revenue. No. So we will start this day with a great panel with Maggie Chen, who is assistant professor of École Hôtelier de Lucerne, Olga Sommer, director of revenue management of Nobu Hotel London, and Raul Moronta, CCO of Remington Hotels. The panel will be great and amazingly moderated by Scott, and we will talk about cost optimization and profitability. After that, we will have 3 hotel tech sessions with Julio Analytics, with Vasilis Siropoulos, Ideas, with Rachel Stanley, and we will end this session with a face-off to Infor, to Andrew Broderick. And to close the day, we will have a great masterclass about cost control driven distribution, and the coach is Neil Dupler from Fornova. So a lot of things. Stay tuned and enjoy it.
Amazing. Right. So before we start the panel, just let's remind the audience that this is not a unique event, a unique episode. We've been running already 4 episodes. This is the 5th. We still have 3 more. And let's look quickly at the remaining dates. And this way you can note, guys, this is very important. Put it on your agenda. All the episode, the coming one. Let's see the clip. Welcome, Scott. Mr. Scott from Erosh Hospitality. How are you, my friend?
Enzo, I'm fantastic. Really happy to be here. 2 weeks off was a long time, actually. I actually logged in last week and no one else was there, so it's good to see you all today.
It looks so tiny, man.
But
you look so tan. You get a lot of
tan. No, I don't know. I'm not sure where that's coming from. No, that's just me. I'm still locked in my home office like everybody else. So, unfortunately, no.
Right. So, shall we look at the video and introduce the panelists? What do you think, Scott?
Absolutely. Let's get them out of here. This is an exciting topic today for sure. So, let's do it.
Here we are, Scott. So I leave the word to you. Guys, you have exactly 55 minutes to end this amazing panel. Your words, man. Go ahead.
All right, Enzo. Thank you very much. First of all, what I'd like to do really is just to introduce the panel. We've got a super exciting panel today. And so the first person I'd like to introduce is Olga Sommer. Olga is Director of Revenue at the Nobu in Portman Square in London. So very excited about your perspective, Olga. But tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do there and why you're joining us today.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me. It's great to be on a panel. Super excited to be in your company. Scott, you're absolutely legendary, and everyone who created this series of revenue episodes, I think, is a fantastic job. So well done. So my name is Olga. I'm Director of Revenue at newly opened Nobu Portman Square Hotel in London. It was quite an interesting experience opening hotel during the pandemic. It's definitely, it's been really an eye-opener. And I've been in the industry for 20 years, out of which 10 is in revenue, was spent in revenue management. So this topic today is very close to my heart because I think revenue management is nothing but thinking about profitability. So it's a big part of it, of what we do.
Absolutely, thanks. So definitely looking forward to getting your perspective. I'm just going to go around clockwise if it's okay. It's kind of a weird reunion for me today. Both versions of my professional past are represented. But first, let me introduce Maggie Chen. Maggie and I actually had the pleasure of teaching together at EHL for several years. Maggie's still at EHL, absolutely one of the experts in distribution, and absolutely a fantastic teacher as well. So Maggie, tell us. I've told everybody everything about you already, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Scott. It is really nice to reunion with Scott this way. And I'm an assistant professor at École Hôtelière de Lausanne. And as Scott said, basically for me, distribution is one of my research topics. I am passionate to know how to help hoteliers. And I participate in different kind of conferences, but it is an honor to be here to share my observation with all these practitioners. And I also hope I can hear from the industry about what we want to do with customer acquisition cost.
Thanks, Maggie. And now I'm going to roll the time machine back ever so slightly further and welcome Raul Moranta. Raul and I had the pleasure of working together some time ago at Hershaw Hospitality in the United States. And now Raul is Chief Commercial Officer of Remington Hospitality, one of the largest third-party managers in the United States. Really, really interesting perspective, Raul. I'm really excited you're here. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Nope. I think you might be muted.
There you go. Of course. It is COVID time, so we are all muted. But very happy to be here. Obviously, we've worked together, so we've known each other for some time. I think I might be the only person in the panel that is not in, or at least is in the U.S. But hopefully I'll bring the U.S. perspective into the panel. I've joined Remington as a Chief Commercial Officer in December. So it's been an interesting experience to try to figure out how we ramp up and grow revenues in obviously a depressed revenue environment. So, but very excited to be here. We have, I am based out of Dallas, Texas. We have about 80 hotels in continental US. So we have hotels in the United States, and then we have one hotel in Alaska. So mostly branded. We do have about 12 independent hotels, which, as you know, distribution and cost of distribution for independent hotels is very different on the branded environment. But very happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thanks, Ro. We're definitely looking forward to having your sort of large portfolio perspective. I think it'll be very interesting as we move forward. So let me just kind of throw it out there. This is all about distribution cost. I think that even before COVID, we kind of had come to the conclusion that there wasn't a whole lot of profitability left in terms of cutting costs. We don't control taxes. We don't control insurance. We don't control all these things. And yet there's all this money being spent on distribution. And I think another friend of ours, another friend of the show, Max Starkov, kind of described it at one point as the last frontier. So what I'd like to do, for those that know the format, we kind of base our discussion on some of the posts from the Hospitality Net Revenue Optimization panel. So I'm going to go right to Max's post, and I'm just going to read the first line, and then I'm going to ask a couple of people to comment about it. And that was that he said we need to start treating direct online distribution costs as distribution costs. So I know we all have some passion about that, but let me, Maggie, let me ask you first. First of all, what does he mean for people that don't have quite as much of an understanding of it?
Well, for me, I feel like, we need to differentiate distribution cost and customer acquisition cost. Distribution costs are related to OTA commissions, okay, the discounts you offer to tour operators. But on the other hand, there are many other costs which are not considered by me as distribution cost. So for example, earlier, Raul mentioned about he has a branded hotel and independent hotel. For branded hotel, you have brand charges, right? And whether you are branded or independent, you have sales and marketing related expenses. You have CRS fees. You have GDS fees. And all these are considered by me as the customer acquisition cost. But we should say it this way: cost of customer acquisition cost is bigger than the distribution cost. And when we really want to think about profitability, we cannot just think about the distribution cost, the commissions. We need to have the holistic view of all other expenses related. That's how I see it.
Perfect. So Olga, I'm just going to ask you kind of as a follow-up. You were another person that when we talked about all these, this was one of the posts that you zeroed in on as well. What's your take on it? How do we need to start looking at this cost thing?
Yeah, I actually look at exactly the same as Maggie. At the end of the day, you need to put all your costs together. What owners want to know, how much revenue did we make in a period of time? How much did it cost us? And what is left at the end of it, right? So, and in some like franchise or charges might be quite chunky, So when we're talking about the cost, for me, that's all marketing activities, whether they are using external companies or internal, all the kind of what everything you have on P&L, everything that goes into marketing. So for me, I also see it as customer acquisition costs, so all together, and very often you can't necessarily always differentiate it. So I think it's easier to track it this way as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great point. So, and Raul, I want to ask you the same question. First of all, very general in that sense, but also if you wouldn't mind, I think Olga just mentioned a really interesting point, which is tracking. And so you have the biggest portfolio, therefore you're the one playing find the numbers the most probably. So talk a little bit about how do we find it all, because it's obviously not all sitting in the same place too. So.
Yeah, and I think the issue of tracking has a lot more to do with technology that has to do with distribution. I'll give you an example. You can have, let's say, a Priceline reservation that is connected through the brands through GDS. You can have it through a direct connectivity through a CRS, or you can have it booking through, a direct connectivity. Those are going to have very different costs and have nothing to do with the fact that you want to have an OTA, an opaque reservation. It's just that the distribution channels are very fragmented in terms of technology, and every company has a very different technology platform, which then forces us to have different cost measures. And I think because of that, it is very difficult for us to be able to track all of the expenses at the same time, because they all not all go through the P&L. In the case of margins, those margins go through, they actually happen pre-transaction. So they take their margin out, we get our net revenue, so we never see that. For our side, we have used, probably one of the companies that have done the best job, at least in the US, is Calgary Labs. They have been able to do some calculations and cost calculations outside of your P&L and have some assumed costs that make it a little bit easier for us to calculate that. The other thing you find is that there isn't an industry-wide standardization. We have done a far better job of standardizing market segments than we have done at channel distribution. Because as I said, you can have that an OTA reservation could come via GDS, could come directly to the property on a fax. So because of that, we don't have a generic way to do that. I would also tell you that it's very hard for you to find channel distribution on a P&L, or if you are doing a pro forma or you are doing some sort of due diligence. It's very difficult to find that information for any system. And I think until that happens, until we find it on a P&L, or we find a standardized way to do that, it's going to be very difficult to calculate it the right way for all the hotels.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a very good point. So let's dig a little bit into that, if you don't mind, a little bit further. And Maggie, I want to come back to you. So you mentioned all those costs of acquisition. Some of them, they might not be in the same place, but at least we can find them. You can kind of understand what your margin was on every transaction. Boy, based on the way we move our rates, that's a super hard moving ball, but you can kind of figure it out. But some of them are softer than that, even like loyalty costs, right? How much of that was acquiring the customers? How much of that was because the brand made us give it to them and they would have stayed here anyway? That kind of, how about the softer stuff? How do we deal with those things?
Well, this is the part I want to come back to what Raul said. We all know the uniform system of accounts. They define revenue, they define different expenses, but they don't define customer acquisition cost. So as you mentioned, there are some soft costs like a loyalty fee, like brand charges. There's no definition, right? So in this case, Raul already told us several times, where do you get the information? And who has the information? So the web-related expenses normally are charged to the IT department. And the sales marketing expenses from the brand are for the marketing department. The OTA commissions are in the room department. So you don't have the information in one place. Then there's a delay. The delay of, like Raul told us, there are different ways to get a reservation. When do you receive the bill? When do you book that on the accounting system? So I think this topic is really something we need to have more discussion on. Just like what you mentioned, the soft, how do you define the cost of customer acquisition? And since there's no standard, and since the industry has such a huge diversity, it's very difficult to come up with the conclusion to say that, okay, you are going to calculate by taking A, B, C, D, add them together.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And how about you guys, Olga? Same thing. I mean, are you able to track it? You have a P&L. You have one hotel, so you might be able to turn under every single stone and look for everything, like Raul, who's got to do it with a vacuum cleaner. Are you able? How much? I mean, there's a diminishing return to a certain extent in some of it, right? So how do you balance that?
Yeah, so I worked actually in a hotel group where I was looking 23 hotels, and I can relate to what Raul was saying. It's very different when you have standalone property, because yes, I can look at what was revenue made and look at the P&L, and I do actually look at all of those costs associated and commission, and that's then I can see what is left at the end of the day, kind of, for this set period of time, usually months. But for the bigger chains, it is more trickier because they are tracked differently. That's why I prefer to have them all kind of bundled together. Yes, it may not be precise to one booking exactly, but it gives, percentages. It still gives an idea where we are. And I don't think it's more about seeing the trends rather than having precise, exactly, to T results, because the trends are really important to track. And even right now, are we in a position to drop some of the less profitable channels? I don't think so. But tracking it, keeping kind of in mind where you want to get with it, and I use pace. Pace, I think, is a good kind of indicator. When you're running campaigns, and revenue and marketing should be working really closely and GMs together, because to see the results, you don't see results from each individual campaigns exactly, but over a period of time, you can actually see those trends and pace improving. And that's really the most important. So are we moving into the right direction or not? Or do we need to slightly change our course? So for me, it is kind of slightly bigger picture. And even if we utilizing channels that are possibly less profitable, over time, okay, we will get to the where we need to get. That's my kind of, yes, I'm able to see overall the spend on marketing expenses and cost optimization.
Thanks, Olga. Raul, you mentioned Colibri Labs. I think that's probably a really good, little free endorsement for Colibri Labs. Obviously, Cindy Estes Green, really one of the thought leaders in the whole distribution thing. And I was fortunate enough to be involved in the original white paper that drove rate parity, whether you like rate parity or not. It was fun, at least. But Cindy Estes-Green was really, really heavily involved in that process too, and she's the founder of Calibri. So, I mean, kind of in the context of that information, Raul, how effective do you feel like you are in using all of that to be able to manage your portfolio?
So the best way to describe it is we have Calibri Labs where we feel individual hotels have we have the ability to grow revenues or maximize profitability in each individual hotel. In general, because we have a high number of hotels that are within the Marriott environment or within the Hilton environment, then we do distribution and profitability by those channels, because again, you have all the normalized distribution channels are set up the same way. Or for example, on the independent side, one of the things that we have historically done is that every single one of our independent hotels, it is under one single platform for CRS, PMS, and RMS, which means that what we have done is we have an analytics application. We have Power BI, and what we have been able to do is do what we call translator, which is we have to take a look at what does the Marriott environment say. It is direct channel versus what Hilton says versus one independent hotel. And we have to find translators in order to normalize all the information. So as a portfolio, we are able to make assumptions based on what I call the highest common denominator, which is we probably do it at the master channel. And then again, there's going to be some caveats between one information and the other. But again, we optimize at the individual level. We have high level discussions at the higher level, because again, getting granular level for full portfolio when you're dealing with probably 4 or 5 different family of brands is very difficult for us to do.
Yeah, I think so. And actually, I want to ask you just kind of a follow-up question about that. You mentioned the brands, and effectively you're trying to control costs, that you're not the person negotiating the contract that's impacting the cost. So, do you feel like that you have less ability to control that in a brand environment? Do you feel like the brand's buying power and its ability to negotiate a better deal makes up for that? I mean, how does that work, brand versus independent?
Yeah, you definitely have. If you have a brand, you will have better margins. There's no doubt about it. As an independent operator, you are going to have obviously a higher cost margins. You do have more flexibility in terms of the programs you can participate or not, but you do. Yeah, I mean, independent hotels always going to run a higher margin. I think that where we have the ability to control cost in terms of brands, it is whether we choose to participate or not to participate in different promotions. Reality is, if you take a look at what happens with the brands in the middle of COVID, is brands have different promotions. In most cases, they allow those promotions to go into an OTA. So they said, we are going to do a save and 15-20% off. The OTAs did a far better job at the distribution and marketing piece of that. So sometimes, for example, if we wanted to participate in a brand promotion, we got a disproportionate amount of increase through an OTA for that promotion as opposed to the brand channel itself. So in a lot of situations, what ended up happening is that we loved it for weekdays, but we are sometimes at capacity on weekends. And then it was a situation where we're not managing the channel, we're managing the day of week for that specific promotion in order to have more or less of that particular channel.
Okay. And so let's just kind of ask you the same thing, really. It's kind of the question of that you have some independence, right? You have some benefit of some scale, but also probably a little bit more independence. You probably ride right in that place that we'd all like to be, kind of halfway in between. How much control do you have? Do you really think in terms of the contracting piece versus the managing piece on an ongoing basis? And where do you think the bigger return is, or is it equal, or how do you think that works?
To a certain degree, we do have control pretty much on what we are participating. There are certain campaigns that are branded, and we're participating in them, and certain but most of the stuff we do independently. So what we do, how we control the channels, and I can definitely relate to what Raul was saying, is that you can see return from OTAs much greater, just because they do certain things better. And that's what I meant earlier by saying, I don't think you can switch off certain channels, maybe not always. If Raul's hotels are in a position to do it now, great. For the UK, it's not yet the position we're in. It's very much about generating revenue. But we do have, I think once we're out of the pandemic, we will go back to a little bit greater control. But because we invested quite heavily in our direct marketing, and we do have quite high cost for the marketing, but we actually see a larger proportion right now of direct business than OTS and any others. So we are kind of seeing the benefits of that.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Whether it is, because we're a 5-star luxury hotel, it might be a slightly different story. Because for a budget sector, there is no chance they will have right now investment to get to the same volume of business they can see from online travel agencies. They rely about 60 to 7% is coming from OTAs. How much they need to have an investment to see a return? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't fit everyone.
Gotcha. So you brought up a really interesting point. You talked about kind of brand marketing, which to me is one of the most difficult ones, right? Because there's something involved in that. That's something involved in the transaction. We talk about the number of times, and Maggie, I'm sure you can probably give the most recent statistics, the number of sessions, how many websites do people visit before they book and everything. How do you attribute all that cost? Because every single time they touch us, we're spending an effort marketing. And yet one of the times they touch us, they choose to transact or not. Do we associate everything with that time? How do you deal with the investment in marketing that you just mentioned, Olga? I think I just asked two people that question. So let me say, Maggie, how do we deal with the investment in marketing that Olga just mentioned? That was much better. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I want to say that, first of all, I'm really glad to hear what Olga and Raul mentioned about you need to actually also think when you actually work with a brand. You cannot just assume that you join all the promotion activities. Because what Raul said is that, okay, if the brand's promotion is going through OTA, then he probably will pass. So I think that is already, for me, this is something it's very important for all the audience to know. So always evaluate, even if it's brand proposal. I think people need to know. And the second thing about what Scott just mentioned, Google published a research which is before COVID, but I think we will see the latest one maybe when we return to normal. But before COVID, Google said that people, on average, it takes people 36 days, go through 45 touch points to book a room. For us, we think this is ridiculous. But travel is a big decision for many people. If people are going to go to stay at the Olga's Noble Hotel, that's a lifetime event. So I'm not surprised about 36 days and 45 touch points. But then the key question now is, when we calculate the contribution margin by channel, how do you take into consideration that people are jumping from one place to the other, the different touch points? So we talk about we need to have the attribution model. But I think the attribution model, maybe you will be able to keep track of what's going on, how different websites contribute to direct booking. But I think the attribution model may not provide enough information about the contribution made by GDS, OTA, and offline channels. So to answer Scott's question, I think the attribution model is something we need to work on. And when we calculate the profit margin, if we do it by channel, the question is this: how do you recognize all the channel when you consider it takes average people 36 days?
Yeah, it's amazing. If you think about that, that same study, I believe, was the one that said that 80% of our travel initiates on mobile, or 85% initiates on mobile, but 80% concludes on desktop. So if you want to track that customer, boy, you've got some pretty sophisticated tracking, because you're chasing them from device to device even. And everything is happening. I'm sure everyone loves all their information on the internet. So I'm sure you're all signing into everything with your personal data, right? And connecting all that stuff so that we can make nice attribution and we can feel feel good about our marketing. And so, yeah, you're right. I think it's a really, really difficult challenge with that path and all those touch points if we want to be that sophisticated. So let me back up and be a little bit less sophisticated. 5 years ago, anytime you said the word online travel agency, you heard the theme music from Darth Vader coming into Star Wars. Like, it was the worst thing in the world. It was costing us a tremendous amount of money. But I think that thought is that thought is evolving. And Raul, you mentioned it. I'm going to ask you to speak about it first. But I think we've at least become sophisticated enough to be able to identify when we're spending 35% margin ourselves to generate business that we're getting from someplace else for 20 and feeling really good about the direct business, but killing the profitability at the same time. So, I mean, Raul, would you say, I mean, even from a big institutional perspective, have we become somewhat channel agnostic in that regard? You mentioned, driving better on your brand promotion on an OTA than on the brand site itself, which I'm sure there's some brand people right now really freaking out when they heard that. But what is that? I mean, how does that cause you to make decisions? It changes things, right?
Well, and again, I think that if you take a look at all the conversations that we've had for the last 5 years, you were looking at years when the industry was in its peak, right? You come out post-COVID. I'll give you a couple of examples. Pre-COVID, our portfolio was probably in the 12% range for OTAs, and it was probably in the 20% range for GDS. GDS right now is producing about 6% of our revenues. OTA in some hotels is 40%, 50%. So you would have zero or very minimal business transient. You would have zero, very minimal group business. So a lot of those channels, a lot of those segments would have probably defaulted into Property Direct or would have defaulted into GDS. When you're looking at the only channel that is producing is the leisure channel, and that channel happens to be the one that you need to drive more revenues in, there's a cost calculation about what we want to maximize on, but reality is at some point you need to get to break even. And to give you another kind of interesting tidbits of info, in the US, and I know that again I'm speaking to a worldwide audience, but in the US last week, nationwide occupancy for Saturday was 75%. US. That occupancy was regardless whether it's top 25 markets or not. Top 25 markets on a Tuesday was less than 50%. So right now, almost 50% of our revenues are coming in on Friday and Saturday, which are heavily leisure and are heavily OTA driven historically. So when we do our calculations, I think it is, 5 years ago, I would have told you I want to minimize certain channels because I am now dealing with how do I maximize the tip of the spear. When you are trying to figure out what this is the only volume you have, then your calculation about cost changes completely. Because now you need to figure out how do I maximize my revenues. And then the other challenge that we're having in the US, believe it or not, that there is the, profit per occupied room. That factor is now changing to profit per clean room. And the reason for that is because people are not thinking about the fact that in the US you have a labor shortage. So sometimes you don't have enough clean rooms in certain dates, and then that also is going to change your calculation as to how do you maximize revenues when you have loss of income because you do not have all rooms available for whatever reason you have. So I think that again, the pre-COVID timeframe and calculating cost and the calculations we do on the corporate side are very different than the current environment, and I think that they are going to also be very different in 2022 and beyond, because we're probably going to get back to a more normalized environment of revenues and profitability.
Scott, may I add something to
of course, please do.
Both of the statements. So Maggie mentioned that point where the customers are jumping from one touch point to another. And I think this is the crucial, is like what hotels do when it happens. Okay, how can we, and there is a great opportunity to drive direct business. There are plenty of things hotels can do better. And some properties already increasing the seeing the benefits of that direct business because they invested, they're seeing results now. So there is opportunities for hotel to gain more business and to secure that customer. Now, what Raul has mentioned, I really can relate to that. There's a huge shortage right now of staff in the UK as well. And the businesses have to scale down because they're back, because they're not able to deal with the demand. Now, because right now, as we know, there is right now less business coming from the GDS, is for me, is what hotels do. Have they potentially reduced the expenses on some of the campaigns that would historically go into the GDS, but did they distribute that money into, for example, supporting the in-house reservation centers or call centers? Because if we see increase of direct business, but are we actually looking after that channel? Are we diversifying? Are we quickly reacting to that change of channels or not? So that is just something to mention.
So, Maggie, I think what that's saying to us, it totally makes sense. Yeah. Absolutely. I think what we're learning from that is you and I need to do some research on whether housekeeping is supposed to be included in the distribution costs or not. So let's shift a little bit, and I think we want to talk a little bit about Fabian Bartnick's post, because I think all of us were attracted to a piece of it, and I'm just going to read you a piece of it because I think it's really impactful, and then let's go around and talk about it some more. He said, "Don't get hung up on profitability percentage. In high demand times, cost of acquisition matters. However, in medium and especially low demand periods, when there's no displacement, the profit generating business should be taken to drive profit," right? So we should look at dollars, not percentages. The classic argument that we have, the reason that I always fought with the resident manager, let's sell the presidential suite and close the reservation system then if only percentages matter. So where, can we measure it that way? Is that, what do you guys think? I mean, how do you deal with that? How can you, how can we get sophisticated enough to say we should have no more than a 10% distribution cost on this sold out night, but I'm willing to pay 50% for this Sunday night business and like it and be happy about it? How can we get there? So Olga, you were one of the people that tuned in on this one first. How can we get more real? How can we talk about making money and not spending percentages?
No, I have two examples to share. So I always, to the new starters who are joining the company, I always give them an example of, do you sell more edamame beans with 92% profit margin or sell Wagyu beef with 50% profit margin? It works out you need to sell 500 times more edamame beans to make the same to make the same amount of money. So I absolutely agree with Fabian. At the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter sometimes what occupancy you're running or what is ADR. It's actually what you have left. Are you running as busy fools and not making profit? For me, that is more important than what is actually KPIs. Occasionally, it's good to look at the KPIs, but also depends on the business and what are their goals. And there was a second example that kind of right now escaped my mind. Sorry, a second example came back. Sorry, thank you. I was talking to director of revenue who opened 5-star hotels recently during the pandemic, and they went to quite a drastic measure because they were not getting OTAs or direct business. They didn't have enough exposure in the market yet because they didn't have reviews and for a couple of other reasons. So they went to a drastic measure of selling 2 for the price of 1. Was it most profitable decision? Possibly not, but they reached the goal they were looking to achieve, and now they opened additional chance where they will get the business. So I agree. So it's not necessarily about percentages, but actually you may have different goals to achieve at different times.
Yeah, I used to. We have this argument all the time, and it's really interesting. Just let's go take a look and see how we traditionally price wine. And do we really charge 4 times, or 8 times or 10 times the bottle for a $300 bottle of wine? And then how much of it do we actually sell, right? So, where we should be happy with the margin at some point or another with the dollars because we spend the dollars. And Raul, how about from an institutional perspective? Even when you're talking about sales incentives and some of those things, are you able to, how does a company or how does a hotelier kind of discern between the business I'm willing to pay for because it's incremental and the business that, boy, I can sell that anyway and I don't want to pay that much for it?
Very good question. I think it's all about opportunity. You're trying to maximize revenues, and maximizing revenues, you could be maximizing on high demand and maximizing in low demand. So the calculations are very different. I mean, in general, I couldn't tell you that we have an industry or a company-wide saying we're not going to pay more than X in a generic sense. I think that when you're looking at a leisure destination on a weekend, the calculations could be very different than if you're looking at a select service hotel on a Sunday night. And right now, for example, we talk about the change of distribution in OTA. The reason why you have a lot more OTA distribution now, it is not because we have strategically selected to say we want more OTA and we'll never be able to get back. It is because you have the absence of other business. And I think in the context of that, you have to take a look at every single day on its own and be able to figure out what is it going to take to maximize the revenue and the profitability for that particular day and that particular hotel. The other thing is that, for example, one of the things that struck me about his comments was that you worry about whether you want incremental profit dollars or incremental profit percentages. That changes the calculation depending on your investment stack. So if you are a single owner and you have to pay your mortgage and you have to figure it out, how do I make the next payment in this environment, you're probably going to be more guided towards, I need whole dollars regardless of how much it's going to cost me, because I may not be at a break-even point. In a high-level environment, 2019 is a very different calculation. But if you are a public company, then likely it is that you are going to be more measured on profit margins. And the margin percentages and the year-over-year changes are going to make a big deal on the calculation, because that may affect your stock price. So when we take a look at, for example, investments for private companies or investments for single owner hotels, we also have to keep that in consideration, regardless of what our philosophy is, because at the end of the day, we have to be an owner advocate and we have to maximize, as I said, the profit of that hotel and the revenues for that hotel based on the owner's needs and requirements at the time of.
Yeah. Okay. So that was just a very complex point that got added to the pile. Thank you very much. And so now, Maggie, we need to not only research adding the housekeeping costs, but also the equity structure of the hotel will be determine the distribution costs. This is exactly turning into a very wide-ranging issue. We knew it was big, but we had no idea it was that big.
We will be busy for the next 2-3 years, I think. You know how academia people work. It will take us a long time. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's going to take us years to prove what you just said. But anyway, okay.
Yes.
I want to shift gears a little bit more. So it's great. Sure. We can find it. We know where the numbers are. That's wonderful. We even can understand that there's a slightly different definition for success based on ownership. And that makes absolute sense. Sometimes that consideration can even make sense based on the labor market and the cost. Sometimes you're better off in some situations than others, right? Just based on other things you don't necessarily control. So let's say we can find it. It's great. We know how to find it. We know what we're supposed to get to. What parts can you actually manage to make a difference? Like what levers can you pull and push to cause something to change? So Meg, let me start with you actually. As you kind of think of that inventory of costs, where's the lowest hanging fruit possibly?
Well, I want to say that this is we come back to this idea. We use so many different kind of technology. So, Raul reminded us about how do you track, right? You want to track the transaction between different systems. And then, of course, we have revenue management, sales management, and different software, okay? And what I want to say is this. I don't see the possibility for us to be able to just say that, okay, then we don't do it. And Olga just tell us that how much effort, independent hotel, or, you run a different sales marketing activities. So you don't get lucky. You work hard to get the customer into your hotel. And I just don't see the opportunity to go down, I just hope what we will be able to do is, if we are able to do many successful marketing campaigns, like what Olga is talking about, then our demand will be strong. When our demand is strong, then we will be confident to increase the room rate. Okay, that's how I see it. I don't see many opportunities to reduce the cost, but I hope we will be able to build up enough demand for our products, then we feel comfortable to increase the room rate. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. And Olga, let me ask you the same question. How do you feel? Do you think is the bigger opportunity in driving the demand and raising the price? Is the bigger opportunity in becoming more efficient and really understanding the costs? Where does the opportunity lie?
Both, probably.
Okay.
I wouldn't reduce the cost. I think it's about where do you direct the cost. Okay, so where are you more likely to get right now the business, and focus that attention there, and maybe invest a little bit more into that channel. And then about, in a couple of months' time, something else will be like, okay, well, we have another opportunity that just maximize from that. Something that I'm seeing actually a lot in UK market, because of probably pent-up demand, the customers actually not that much worried about the cost or the price as such. They're looking for value for money, and that is right now that's where I'm seeing opportunities right now. The price itself, yes, there is reasonable levels, and you need to find your sweet spot where you're selling a good volume. Again, in context of the market conditions and similar hotels, but that value for money proposition, I think for customers is more interested right now in that rather than what it's actually cost them.
So help us a little bit more what that means in a really more direct, practical sense. Is that, is it the price point, or is that more packaging and value adding? And what form does that take when you think about it?
Yeah, so for me, it's a packaging and value added, and that's where I'm seeing it's also about creating unique experiences. So you need to constantly bring something. Right now, we are very much focused on domestic market, right? So we don't have any international travel. It's how do you continuously excite the customers? You want to bring some unique experiences, kind of one after another, just to keep that traffic coming in. And yes, packages and value added. That's for me the biggest one, the drivers. And it's not really, I don't think revenue management is about just the bedrooms. I see it as a holistic approach, overall experience and total revenue management. That's why I talk about, okay, what can we do in F&B, if you have a theater or something else. So it's a bigger picture. It's a holistic approach.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we're seeing a little bit also, and I'm interested to hear all of your thoughts, we're seeing a little bit of a shift in consumer demand away from the point of sale, a little bit more towards thinking about travel. So as soon as you start to package, you start to put together a product that's more of an experience, as you mentioned, it gives you a better opportunity to market it as well. You can get out of that fighting for London hotels at $17 a click or whatever you're paying for currently. And you can get into getting in front of people, even using social media, potentially organically and free. But effectively, you have to sort of change your mindset to start selling that customer's future memory, not the bed and the toilet that they're going to utilize when they're gaining the memory, right? If we get into the commodity business, we're kind of toast, right? And I think the other thing that you mentioned about investment in marketing, we shouldn't neglect the investment that the online travel agencies have made in building that loyalty within the leisure segment, and it's paying off for them too, right? These companies are publicly traded companies. If anyone's curious how much they spend on marketing, you should go check. But it's a much larger percentage than the average hotel, and therefore they're getting a return on that investment as well, for sure. How about you, Raul? Where do you see the low-hanging fruit? You mentioned it's really kind of one at a time, but if you had to take a look at it institutionally, where does it seem like it pops up the most when you look at it across a portfolio?
Very good. I think that you can control everything. I think you can have the ability to influence everything. And I will give you an example. You can control your cost through either strategic intention or the absence of. I'll give you an example. If you have, and you say, I am going to take and spend $20,000 on SEO, you are going to have more distribution online. If you're going to take and spend $2,000 on Expedia travel ads, you will generate more revenues into that channel. Or if you simply say, I am going to stop putting money into those channels, then you're going to, again, change the perception or change the number of reservations you have through that channel just because you remove something out of it. We all know that the most effective channel is direct. So if we were to take those things, and I'm not saying I'm suggesting one or other, I'm saying give you an example, that if I take those funds and I take that and basically hire another sales manager that focuses on SMERF, focuses on corporate, focuses on group, you will have more direct distribution. So what we are thinking about here is not that I am going to shut down one channel to another, is that you're going to intentionally focus on one versus another, which is what I believe you can do in called channel displacement. So if I intentionally book more ahead of time through direct channels, whether that would be group, business transient where there is, or any other channel other than OTAs, then I am in fact, again, changing my cost structure. So I think, again, as I said, you can have it through, as I said, as an intentional strategy, or again, as ignoring one channel. And simply it is, well, that is what we are trying to do. We're simply saying right now, the channel that he's producing, it is, again, direct channels, property. We've had a lot of, for example, in the US, National Guards or nurses and things like that. Because of COVID, we're going to go after that channel. We are seeing now some green shoots coming in on the business transient side as the states start to remove restrictions. And then that is the next focus channel that we are going to go after, because we traditionally have been a very strong midweek corporate and group organization, and we are going to get back to those levels. Until then, again, we are going to do whatever we need to do to make sure that we maximize our revenues in the current environment.
Perfect. Yeah, I actually was going to, you made me think of something when I saw something that ran across the screen at the bottom, and I would like to get everyone's thoughts on this. And that is the whole, once you got it, you can't get it out. Once you've got 50% OTA, you can't get it out. And I actually am not a big believer in that. I actually believe that the branded channel, the direct channel, if you're managing it well, they'll pay you more. You're competing in a brand agnostic channel otherwise. So if you can create enough of your own demand that you can raise your prices, effectively you're going to shift your mix, because you're going to be more attractive to that direct customer than you are to the totally brand agnostic one. So effectively you're pricing yourself out of some of that OTA business and you're shifting your mix by yourself. But it comes from creating displacement, quite frankly, because the word we haven't said yet, but we're dancing around, is perishability. And we don't really, it's like we have to take that piece into consideration all the time. And I don't think that, with the exception of potentially when a different metric matters, like a publicly traded environment, I don't think any of us really have the luxury, unless we own the hotel, to decide to make less profit. I mean, it's not really kind of like not what we're supposed to do. That's not why they pay us. So we've got a few minutes left. I want to shift into something ever so slightly differently. Let's now talk about the people that have to do this. So Diego, one of the people that puts this all together, he's actually one of the people that was responsible for the revenue dictionary. He's the chief revenue officer of Palladium Hotels. Many of you know them. But his post for in the panel started out had a great line in it. Could we start talking about becoming a profit manager instead of a revenue manager? So I'm wondering, Olga, go ahead. Let me start with you. Tell me what you think. But I'm asking you specifically, do you think it's the same person, or do you think it's somebody else? Do we have the right people in the chair right now to be able to make that shift?
Yeah, I think so. I would like to think so. For me, that was a key phrase when I read it. I was like, yes, that's actually that's a key here. Yeah. I think many revenue managers moved from being revenue managers to profit management already some time ago. Every single decision we make has impact on the bottom line, and plenty of examples we had. Hotels had to make decisions: are they going to continue being open during the second lockdown, or do they close? And many revenue managers did support GMs with making that decision. Equally, in April, we could open for 5 weeks earlier, operating F&B outlets outside in the terraces. And many hotels, again, looked at what is a break-even point, to build the terraces, to find employees. And some did a really good job on finding that break-even point, and some probably didn't make actually revenue or didn't cover their costs. So, I think revenue managers already a long time ago moved into this a little bit more profit management and occasionally asset management, and God knows what else we ask to do. At least able to support GMs and sales and marketing and working together alongside other departments. It's sometimes, as a simple example, working out what is the cost, how much you're making from breakfast sold. Is it worth doing certain activities, or actually it's not the wisest decision? So I think we have the right people, and it's been a long way towards the point where we're actually supporting with other functionalities rather than just revenue management.
Cool. And Raul, let me kind of follow up with you. You mentioned group. And so group is a really weird one, right? Because we think of group as being direct. Oh, it's wonderful business. I recently did something for a mutual friend of ours, as a matter of fact, with a very large portfolio. And the effectively, if you created a margin with group, or you created a commission based on specifically the direct sales costs associated with the group sales department, they range from single digits to 45% of revenue. So it was like this incredible breadth of, and I said, well, what about this hotel? Well, that person also does these other functions that are not revenue producing. I'm like, oh, great. Now we're in the P&L with all the expenses around it. But how does that come into play when you really start to get outside the box? Is it a new person that's able to do that, or do you think we have it in place?
Great question. I think a lot of it has to do with the specific asset and the complexity of that asset. If you have a hotel that you have 30,000 square feet of meeting space, you have to have group. There's also a factor of incidental spend. A business transient guest probably is less likely to spend as much money as a group guest would, because they would have breakfast, lunch, coffee breaks, and dinner. So you look at it again as a holistic approach to say, I can sell this group and get incremental revenues as part of that process, which I would not get otherwise with any other type of business. The other interesting thing about it is that the industry is kind of there's a bifurcation of what people think about how revenue management is going to be in the future. You either will be a generalist, which means that you would be all things considered revenue, which is what people said total revenue management. If you really think about it, the vast majority of the times, specialization has become the norm. Meaning, you have had either a specialist that is in a full-service, big box, 1,000-room hotel, or you have a cluster director revenue that has 10, 12, 15 select service hotels. And if you have a cluster environment, it's very difficult to get to these granular level. And I think that that's one of the reasons why in a big hotel, yes, you can have that director revenue be responsible, in charge, and deal with all these factors. In a cluster environment, you probably are heavily more reliant on technology to help you maximize those channels.
Yeah, I think, if you think about it, there's been an evolution that started out with, you were the revenue manager. You're probably the only person in the hotel with a laptop. So now there's some prices to maintain. So now you're responsible for distribution and digital marketing as well. 20 years later, now it's 50% of the job, right? And I think that in many cases, furloughs have pointed that out to companies, that as they rebuild their organizations, they're rebuilding them with specialists and not with those internally kind of built by, I don't know, just accumulation of stuff, kind of large positions. I think you make a really awesome point. So Maggie, let me give you the last word, because Enzo's over there. He's got this gong thing that he rings if you run too long. So let me ask you, you and I are in the business of helping people for the future. Do you think this makes us a sexier job as we go forward, or do you think this makes it more difficult?
Well, I think, more dialogue like what we have today will really close the gap between the academia and the industry. I think Scott and I, we really work close with the industry practitioners. And, this is what we want. We want to work with practitioners to build the future together. And that's how I see it.
Cool. All right. That seems like the perfect final word for me, Enzo.
Cool, guys. That's great as usual. Always great conversation, great topics, and especially, guys, you did a great job. So I think that the audience still get there, commenting, and they really were strongly engaged with this panel. So the topics, it's very hot. But now, how do you handle all those stuff, guys, without technology? So right now, what we're doing, we are starting 3 presentations from 3 different vendors. The first one will be, let me correct you if I'm wrong, I think the first one is going to be with Julio Analytics. Then we have Ideas, Revenue Solution, and then Infor. And then we close after those 3 presentations with a masterclass with Fornova. But before we start those speeches, guys, quickly, I just want to remind you that in combination with this live series, we also release a huge, I think it's the largest dictionary on revenue management and hospitality. I just want to make sure, guys, you know that, and you find out more by downloading for free this ebook. Let me share the video 1 second and I'll come back in a bit. Right, that's great. So we have the first pitch coming out now. It's my friend Vasilis from Julio Analytics. Let's see the clip and introduce who.
Hello everyone, I'm Vasilis Siropoulos and I'm the founder and CEO of Julio Analytics. I'm looking forward to speaking about the future of hotel commercial analytics on the Revenue Manager, the series.
Hi Vasilis, welcome. Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you, my friend?
Very good, thanks. And you?
Very good. I see you very busy, and we just keep the conversation going on now, and we hope to show some interesting technology to manage all the conversation we were handling before with cost optimization, distribution, and so on. So let's share the screen, and you can start your presentation, my friend.
I love it. Excellent. Perfect. Thanks for having me again. So I'm Vasilis. I'm the founder of Julio Hotel Analytics. I'll tell you a little bit about the company and what we do, and then we'll dive in net revenue and distribution cost and how we look at that area. So the reason why we started the company is, as you all know, in hotels, we have lots of different systems, lots of data, and that results in sort of all these data being spread out and these silos that we all know of. So it takes a lot of time. It's a lengthy process to put it all together. And obviously, what we want to focus is take the right decisions. And often the data is pointing us in different directions. So what we believe at Julio is that science has given us a way to process data quite fast, and that is data visualization. So that's what we are. We're the hotel data analytics and visualization platform. And our mission is empowering hotel commercial teams to drive the most profitable business. So how do we do that? Generally speaking, we have a technology, we call it Julio Canvas. It's super flexible. We gather all the data from all the different systems, whether it's your PMS data, whether it's the benchmarking data, anything that has to do with reviews, digital data, market demand, etc. And we bring it alive in sort of really crisp and beautiful reports and visualizations that any user can sort of customize and put together. So what can you do with it? First is understanding the hotel data with a PMS, everything around segmentation, your channels, your accounts, your lead time, all these dimensions surrounding your bookings. Second part is connecting everything that has to do with your market data, understand high demand, your pricing, your market share, etc. We also have a forecast and budget builder, so we allow you to put all this sort of data into practice and, let's say, build forecasts and budgets. And then eventually that will result into having that sort of collaboration and overview and being able to communicate with the whole, let's say, a commercial team on the performance. So last but not least, and that's what puts us maybe a little bit apart, is that we're very, very focused on profit. We are focused on net revenue. We're focused on distribution cost and also the total revenue component of it. So let's talk a little bit about Julio net revenue and how do we think about net revenue and distribution cost at Julio and how do we put it in practice. So first of all, we've done this since 2016. So we have quite a road in being busy with net RevPAR and boiling these analytics down. So this is not something new for us. So a little bit of thinking before. So the traditional view of looking at profitability is obviously the P&L view, where we start with rooms revenue, our costs, commissions, F&B, other revenues, cost, sales, and marketing, and profit. So that is the traditional view of looking at it, which is good, but we need a new way. We actually need to break it down completely, deconstruct it, and reconstruct it around the customer, and really reconstruct the room revenue, what is the additional spend, reconstruct all the distribution costs, etc., around that customer, and then boil it down to profit. So that's a little bit for the theory of how we think about it and how we do it at Julio. So how do we sort of allow hotels to incorporate net revenue into the strategy? So first of all, there's three areas of focus for us. First of all is how we're generally doing. How much profit is our commercial strategy generating as a whole, as a total? The second part is how we align these teams to actually work together and to generate the most profitable business and to allocate resources where they actually should. And the third one is how do we translate it into daily tactics let's say, on the sort of day-to-day optimization. So first of all, in high level, as you talked also before on the panel, there's just so many things that we spend money in hotels. There's, video, there's commission overrides, there's widgets that we put on our website, there's meta search, there's advertising, you have sales teams, obviously, and we want to capture all the data. We don't want to capture only your transactional data, but also your sales and marketing data. So when we talk to net revenue, we actually thought about the totality of your distribution cost. We're all going to put them into the platform, and we're going to generate a, let's say, a net revenue funnel, starting from what the guest has paid in terms of revenue, which is often there's a difference between Booking.com and Expedia, for instance, where Expedia deducts the commission before. We're going to equalize all that. We're going to look at the hotel revenue, which is your traditional revenue. We're going to subtract all the direct acquisition costs that we can link to transactions, can be GDS fees, can be loyalty, can be your marketing campaigns, etc. And then we're going to also allocate the total sales and marketing spend directly on the transactions as well. And then we really have a full view of the net revenue. And it looks something like that. That is an example of the analytics that we give. In this example, that hotel generated a higher net revenue with the strategies that they had in place. So they grew their net revenue faster than their traditional revenue, so to speak, which actually, if you put it in numbers, results in quite some substantial difference in profit. So small adjustments left and right bring really large results once you start working with it. The second one is team alignment, and how can you sort of boil it a little bit more down so that it becomes actionable. And as we all know, we look at our segmentation in this way, and then our segmentation is coming from sort of different channels, and it looks like the best available rate in this occasion is the best segment. Now, if you boil things down in the net revenue, though, you start to realize that there's another picture that is coming to life. And in this very simplistic example, well, group seems to be actually the best one rather than best available rate. But in reality, when we're in our hotels, we need to deal with more complexity. We need to deal with our channels. We need to boil it down to rate codes. We need to look at companies, agencies, look at source markets, which is a source market where we get the most profitable business, there's loyalty, there's all these areas that are really hard to put together. And that's really what we do in the platform. We do all the hard work and the sort of hard lifting of all that data, putting it layer by layer, and really get boiling down at the most granular level, what's the net contribution of the customers. But also we go further, which is we also allocate total revenues, and then later down the road, we're also going to look at profitability, total profitability of the customer. And then the third thing is boiling it down to day-to-day. That's when we really get tactical, when these occupancies are starting to rise. And then what we're going to look at is how does our profitability look at from a day-by-day basis? Are we, if we're forecasting to be fully booked, what is our net revenue? How much we've spent in terms of acquisition costs? That's really the last piece of the puzzle. But we believe that you need to start really high level from the strategy and then sort of work at every level. And that's what we do. So we've built a platform where it's extremely flexible to take a sort of high-level overview, look at your net revenue KPIs on a super high level, understanding that segment channel contribution. And then if you want to, you can really start going down, boiling things down in profit at, let's say, the most granular level that you can actually imagine. And that's our job. And that's how we empower commercial teams to drive the most profitable business.
Right. So at this point, thanks, Vasilis. Great points. Any question from Raul, Maggie, and Scott? Who's starting first?
I have a
Maggie.
Go ahead, Maggie.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that I don't have a question. I just want to say that what I just saw is they address what I mentioned in the panel.
Mm-hmm.
A customer acquisition cost. It's not only about distribution. It's not only about commission. So I like that. I like they break the barrier between departments because they have the commission, they have the sales marketing, they have the loyalty fee. They want to pull all the data together. I think that's very good. The other thing they mentioned is about adjustment because sometimes we offer net rate. Sometimes like agency model, we basically have the regular rate and then we pay commission. So they also take into consideration of this. And I think this kind of adjustments really make it more useful. And of course, I can only imagine how you get access for all the data from different departments in order to fit into your platform. That's my observation.
It's a good observation. That's the hardest part.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Raul, I have a question, but Raul, if you have one, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, congratulations. You know, it seems like a great tool, particularly getting profitability at the day level. You know, I think that we also look at day part, our week parts, weekday, shoulders, and weekends. You may want to consider whether that's a consideration, particularly because sometimes you're trying to maximize the week. Sometimes you're trying to maximize the weekend as opposed to the single Saturday demand. But when it comes down to benchmarking, you know, I think you mentioned something about, you know, comparisons. Is that comparison benchmarking to yourself, to prior months, years, quarters, whatever the case it is? Or are you integrating market and or comp set data? If so, I assume that the comp set data is based on participation more than anything, correct?
Yes, it's based on reservation. The benchmarking, it's an internal benchmarking on the platform. However, we're talking with the different people on the market that have done work around net revenue to be able to have also that market overview.
Okay, cool. So Vasilis, my question is actually very simple. How do you get the costs that aren't on the P&L anywhere? So how do you get margin? How do you get some of those kind of things, right? Because that room just shows up discounted. We don't even know, but somebody paid full rate for it someplace.
Correct. So what we do is that when we capture the data from there's different areas where we can get all these costs, right? So if we look at transactional data, we don't go and get it from the P&L. We go in the PMS, we get all the transactions, and then we allocate everything in the platform, being it as a setup or being from an external, let's say, acquisition platform that the hotel maybe is using. And the reason why we do that is because we go forward looking in terms of net revenue. So we can see what's my net revenue on the books and what's my distribution cost on the books. And then we have all the sales and marketing part of it, which we can get out of the finance system, and then we allocate that separately. So we do, depending on what cost it is, we have a sort of hybrid approach of really try to allocate it to that transaction from different areas. It's not easy, but it's, you know, that's our job.
So super geeky question. Are you using any kind of machine learning AI to look at those costs? Or are you basically accounting or chart of accounts, if you will, or are you solely driven in terms of where you're finding those costs, like the marketing cost you mentioned?
Yeah, so the marketing cost is basically an allocation that we get from all the different systems. What we are currently working on, we are working on predictive models where we can say, here's your expected occupancy, here's your expected net revenue, and sort of see what kind of, let's say, analytics we can derive from them that can be a little bit ahead of the game of saying, hey, watch out, there's something going on here. But that's something that is still in the kitchen for now.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
Right. Last quick question. Federica, you got one?
I do have. First of all, hi, Vasilis. Nice to see you again here. And really, yeah, congratulations for the presentation. It was pretty interesting. And one quick question. Can you tell us maybe 3 aspects that are, you know, the strengths of this tool and that make the difference with other products?
So I would say the difference with the overall product is that we're really a super flexible platform. We sort of want to be a sort of Tableau for hospitality without the complexity. So you can really have a lot of drag and drop functionality, and we have analytics for all the departments. So a revenue manager can see one part of it, a GM can see something else, a regional have an overview. So really have that customization per user. The other one is exploration, which the platform allows you to explore really down to the details. You probably could go down to a single reservation. Maybe you don't need to, but that's the level of granularity we can go. So it's very multidimensional. Obviously, the UI is very, let's say, compelling to work with. It's addictive. And then the last part is that total revenue element and that profitability element. We're going to take it forward a notch, because if you think about, for instance, we will allow hotels to allocate their costs in terms of servicing rooms, and a room for 6 nights has a different cost than a room for 1 night. And and displacement, how do you factor that in? And because we have profiles and repeat guests, we can go down to sort of lifetime value and all that kind of stuff if you're really super super into that. So yeah, I think that's the mission and the road that we're on to.
Super cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Vasilis.
Thank you.
So we have to move to the next session. Thank you again, man, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Right, now the next session will be Raquel from Ideas. Let's look at the video and introduce Raquel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Stanley, Ideas. See you soon at the Revenue Manager.
Hi, Raquel. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
I know you're based in US, so it's good morning, right?
No, I'm based in the UK.
It was a joke. I know it was a joke.
yeah.
Anyway, so let's share your screen. 1 second. Where is it? I don't see it. Did you share it already?
There we go. You should be able to see it now.
Coming. Perfect. All right. So you can, your time's up.
Excellent. So, hi, everyone. It's lovely to meet you all. So I'm Rachel Stanley, and I work with the team at Ideas as Principal Solution Engineer, supporting our sales and account management teams with new and existing clients for complex solutions. So Ideas have supported the hospitality industry for over 30 years, and today we lead the industry in solutions that optimize revenue, profit, and operational efficiency for hotels. Innovation is core to our success. We've paved the way for revenue management, and we continue to look forward. Hoteliers are faced with new challenges that previously seemed unimaginable. Yesterday's business models may be obsolete today, and tomorrow's plan may require ongoing course corrections. So new times call for new strategies, cross-department collaboration, and technology tools that help you get back to business with new efficiencies and data insights to attract and serve your guests. It's been a challenging year for hoteliers who have faced economic and health-related challenges. Significant changes in demand and shrinking profit margins have resulted in a new focus on revenue management. So for the past couple of years, we've been working on helping hoteliers on a path to greater profitability and total revenue management across all revenue streams to see how we can simplify this to make it possible for you. So today we'll walk through the core elements of how to prepare your business so you are ready to leverage our RMS for profit optimization. So to be successful, we have identified that you must already be great at revenue management, regardless of whether you have tech in place. You must educate your cross-functional teams and go beyond guest revenue into all of your revenue streams. You need to have a strong collective focus across the organisation on how to drive revenue in teams, in rooms, and all outlets. You need to understand what each segment will spend with you during the stay and what activities they like to do. You should have a good knowledge on what it costs to serve the dining room for each meal service, the profitability of your menus, your servicing costs for your different room types, and how much it costs to provide a massage and spa. And then when you know which guests will book, when they will stay, what they're going to spend, and what it costs you to provide the different services, you can use these insights to adjust your marketing and sales strategy to attract the most profitable guests. So let's look at how we're tackling profit optimization. And we're actually going to look at this from 2 different angles. So firstly, measuring the value of the guest, and secondly, measuring the value of meeting and events. So looking at measuring the value of the guest, we need room revenue, which means ensuring we get to the true net room revenue from our primary data source. And then we need the ancillary spend, so that's the average value for each of the key revenue streams by each segment. And then we need to look at the cost to understand the true value of the guest, so we get to that net profit. Secondly, on the group and meetings and events side, we've always thought about this in terms of all rental revenue. So that includes the guest rooms, your function space, your food and beverage, your AV and your add-ons. Then you take away your cost and commissions. So this enables you to understand what profit you would gain from each inquiry versus the profit you could displace by accepting the group. So this is in place today and already a favourite module with our users. Taking a moment to understand more about servicing costs, we have this in place with a number of clients already. We understand that as demand is reduced, and in many cases, costs are reduced for multiple night stays, since guests commonly decline room service when they're staying for longer, but costs increase for the short stays due to the increased cleaning procedures. So we found that typically organisations track the cost per occupied room, but don't track the different levels of service by room type. So knowing these costs at this level to be folded into your optimization has a huge impact, especially in a COVID world where guests might not want to take as much service during their stay. So we enable refined cost configuration to capture varying room servicing costs by length of stay, which accounts for customized costs and schedules for the full turn, interim and full service. So are you able to take the most profitable business today? The first step in getting the most value out of your guest room revenue is to optimize all types of business for each day and all room types into the future. To ensure you are optimizing both price and inventory to capture the most profitable mix of demand, Ideas RMS will automatically and strategically produce a combination of decisions. Working together, these decisions were not designed to drive either occupancy or ADR independently, but to maximize your overall revenue. So with the change in the optimization process, they're going to focus on maximizing your profit. So we need to think about what these decisions are, and actually we stick with the same decisions that make our clients successful with revenue optimization. So you have the last room value, which acts as a hurdle to accept the most profitable business to optimize stay patterns. So this is important on particular days, seasons and room types, especially as many hotels are currently operating at reduced capacities. The overbooking control lets you avoid lost revenues due to cancellations and no-shows, and it helps with that demand imbalance across room types. So for example, when you upgrade rooms, and then your pricing decisions are optimized down to the product and the room type level, not just your best flexible rate. So as the demand increases, you'll be prepared for exceptional business performance. And while demand is softer, the RMS will continue to produce controls relevant to current and evolving market conditions. So let's look in a little bit more detail as to how this will work with Ideas Revenue Management Solution. And some of you may already be familiar with this, but we always think about it in terms of our revenue optimization cycle. So first, we consider the inputs required to generate an unconstrained forecast. So for each of the market segments that we work with, what are the revenues without any taxes for all revenue streams? Then for each of these revenue streams, what is the profitability? For the room revenue, we also need to consider what the servicing costs and how much did it cost me to get this business, dependent on channel. So what would I have paid for the booking if it came via booking.com or via my own website? Then we need to look at what business mix would generate the most profit for us. So today, our revenue management system focuses on determining the optimum mix by revenue contribution. The properties that work with us for profit optimization have the optimum mix determined by profitability. So Ideas understands what's on the books, the remaining demand, the willingness to pay for each segment, what length of stay by day of the week and season, and what cancellations, wash and no-shows are expected. So this is the same process as required for revenue optimization. Then we need to apply the controls that we've just spoken about to manage the type of business that books. So we want to ensure that we do not fill the hotel out too far out with the least profitable business and limit the capacity close to the day of arrival for the most profitable business. So we do this using the hurdle. So if we had a choice between a corporate guest who does not dine in the hotel versus a leisure guest who dines in the hotel and uses the spa and goes to the bar. Then we need to ensure the selling systems limit the sale of the corporate guests in favour of the leisure guests because they're our most profitable. And then finally, we need to provide reports that support the revenue manager and the operational teams of the hotel to view the key performance indicators by revenue as well as by profitability. So this drives a change in operational focus and practice with not only the ability to report on revenue, but also profit, given the first of its kind profit-based revenue management system. So the benefits to you is the RMS will support you to adopt a long-term strategy of profit-based growth. You'll get insights into the true costs associated with the revenue streams, helping you to identify where to be more efficient. Our profit optimization features are designed to help hoteliers to better optimize their costs, to target the most valuable business, which leads to a more customizable guest experience, which results in a win-win for creating loyalty and repeat business. So at this time, I welcome any questions from the panel. I'd love to hear the areas you're most excited about and the greatest challenges that you face. And I'm happy to provide recommendations for how to prepare your business to take advantage of this exciting new technology innovation.
Amazing. Thank you, Rachel. Right. So who is going to be the first making some hard question to Rachel?
Well, I'll go first this time. So, Rachel, I was really intrigued by something that you showed, and I would like for you to explain it a little bit more, and that was translated restrictions. I understand hurdles because I'm really old and I worked in Holiday Inns a long time ago, and I understand restrictions. And so I'm curious. So you've got to tell me a little bit about what that term meant, because that absolutely caught my attention.
Okay, so what we need to be able to do is when we send the hurdles and the PMS calculates it, it's based on the room rates because that's what the PMS has and that's what the guest is booking. But the room rate, there's so much more to it because we know what that guest is likely to book when they come and stay. So actually we need to add a sum on top of it that allows for the spend that we anticipate them to have when they're in-house. And within that spend, we've already accounted for the profitability.
So effectively you're adjusting the business so that it's artificially more attractive based on the ancillary revenue that it would be bringing with it effectively. Oh, okay. So that's that. So there's a other definition of hurdle, which is kind of the overall sum of a piece of business and evaluating that and adding up the value of the days. But now I understand. Okay, that's really cool. Very cool.
And the sort of the obvious example, which is where we started, is with a casino. If you give a room away free because you know they're going to spend a lot in the casino, you want to make sure that room still has a high value when they book it, even though you're giving it away free. So that's the sort of the first example that we started with, and then we thought about how it translates into other functions outlets.
So essentially, this is a question coming from one of the panelists who's off stage right now. So I wanted to ask on her behalf. But you talked about understanding net revenue, but are you able to basically take into account and optimize based on the channel and the costs and those kind of things? Or?
Yeah. And actually, what we're doing is we're breaking down the profit optimization tasks. So thinking about servicing costs, that's already available in the product today. So we can factor that in to the room revenue calculation, the optimization today, and we are doing for some of our longer stay guests, clients, and then we can, so we can break it down. And channel cost is the next thing that we're working on. We've currently got a couple of beta clients that we're busy with getting this functionality to market, but overall, it will lead to the profit optimization that some of our clients have already got, but other clients will be able to take parts of it that works well for their business.
Cool.
Understood. And so just let me one follow-up question, Enzo, before you do that. Does that mean that you're sort of ready to send out of parity prices to different distribution channels?
Well, that's the hurdle for the channel costs. That's why it's taken us a bit longer than we would want to, because it's not about the technical aspect of it. It's more about, is the industry ready for this? And that's, we're lots of conversations with clients who feel that they're ready for that, but we just got to see how that goes. That's the big hurdle to it.
Yeah, that was a big sentence in a way. So really cool. Congratulations. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question, Raul. I think it's going to be also the last. We are on time.
Okay, well, Rachel, first of all, thank you for your presentation. I don't know if you know, but all of our independent hotels with Remington are on IDSG3. So Very excited for the platform. So I know that your main focus, obviously, it is on optimizing revenues and profit. However, since we have been talking a lot about channel cost, I think that, and the fact that you have all of our channel distribution, is there any possibility for you to do a post analysis on the cost reporting? Meaning, we just had a presentation about a separate application. Is there a way that we can have that integrated within Ideas, so we have the ability to see, once May completed, what is the actual true cost of acquisition by channels?
Yes. Yeah. That's part of the feature that we're working on at the moment.
Cool. Right. So I think we are done with Ideas. Thank you, Rachel. It was
Thank
great.
you, everyone.
Thank you, darling. I'll see you soon in another episode. I know you guys from Ideas, you have some other episode in the coming one, and looking forward to see you again. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Rachel.
Bye-bye.
Right, guys. So at this point, we're done with those two product pitch. Now we have an interview with Andrew from Infor, and I want to personally thank you, Scott, Raul, and Maggie. Thanks really much for your support. I'm not sure if you want to be there, but now we have Olga helping in this interview. If you want to stay. If you have your schedule, you can go. Thanks again for participating and joining us today, also the panel. And right, so at this point, let's introduce the next session. But before to do so, just a quick reminder. This is the 5th episode, guys. We still have 3 more. Let's quickly look at the plan and the next date's episode and 10. And
that's right.
Let's come back.
Tell your friends. Tell your friends. I said, tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Share that. Make fun. And spread the love. I'll see you in a few seconds. Okay, as you can see, guys, a lot of stuff to do yet. So, Olga, welcome back. So, let's introduce now a quick video of Andrew. Let's get to know him a little bit, and then we start this interview. We'll see you in a few seconds.
Greetings, everybody from Vail, Colorado. This is Andy Broderick from Infor at 10,550 feet. Looking forward to a great series and to seeing everybody at the Revenue Manager. Be well, stay healthy, and don't ever ski in jeans.
Hey, man, welcome back from the mountain, Andrew.
Thank you very much. And from ski gear to a suit and tie. Yeah, the many faces of Andy.
Fantastic. Right, so at this point, I leave the word to you guys. I know you have a lot to discuss. And we have Olga Sommer from Noble Hotel London. She will make some questions, some interesting to get to know more about Infor in general. So
yes.
Let's listen to your conversation, guys. I'm here, and I'll leave the word to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Enzo. Andrew, good afternoon, Andrew. Thank you very much for your time. It's a great pleasure to have a conversation with you and hoping to learn a little bit from you right now. So
Likewise,
you're coming from wealth of experience having worked in revenue field for a number of years for different hotels and hotel groups, and you also work right now for the Infor, offering technical solutions for a number of industries, including hospitality. So you know all the kind of pain points we have, but also you have solutions or to our problems or day-to-day challenges. So I would like to start a conversation by asking you, how do you envision the role of brand agnostics and OTAs, how hoteliers can utilize them in the strategies moving forward?
Yes, and thank you. And you're correct. I bring a certain bias, having worked as a director of revenue, and I've seen that it's paid off in terms of touchstones. But thank you for the question, specifically as it relates to the online travel agencies and the brand agnostics. Needless to say, these channels have changed pretty considerably in the last 15 months, our relative dependence on them. And what some hotels had employed up to that point as either a filler or a stabilizer to sort of complement the occupancy of the house or the composition of the house has become a primary foundation of getting to a certain occupancy level. There, as we know, have been special agreements and special ad hocs from providers that have been introduced in the last year and a half as it relates to margin and deployment, all with an eye towards, from my perspective, trying to capitalize on that need for short-term occupancy. And specifically hotels in urban areas and destination areas used that brand agnostic channel, that online travel agent channel, to help offset the tremendous deficit that we were seeing as far as group room nights goes, but also with a presumptive backfill for the business travel. And things are changing. Every trend, as we'll talk about in a little bit more detail, is pointing towards a return, I don't want to say to normalcy, but to stabilization. And I prognosticate that the first back will be the midweek business travel and ideally social catering and larger group programs. And a rising tide will lift all ships. And most specifically, once hotels have the option to optimize their rate, specifically in their commoditized product, their suite product, this should change. I urge the evolution of this channel to be used less as a crutch to a tool, which is to say, get creative and strategic, right, on the opaque channels, for example, and perhaps deploy a longer length of stay in order to layer in that occupancy. Continue to target your need dates with specials and value adds, and make your market manager a partner. They have a vested interest, particularly based upon margin and deployment in your success as far as the hotel goes. Ultimately, the directors of revenue management in the hotels have a fiduciary responsibility to manage channel costs. And directors of revenue should be very mindful of parting with margins, when in merit necessary, but also be pragmatic and fence this. And the last thought on this is to sort of keep an eye on the ancillary spend for these guests. Obviously we have a responsibility to edify not just the rooms department, but the outlets, the spa, the contributory parts of the hotel. You use this as a base as you continue to build your strategy, but not as a significant portion of your overall segmentation plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Very good answer. Thank you very much. Interestingly, you kind of noted that there is recovery or green shoots of recovery are showing. I agree with you. We're seeing this in the UK as well. I think US is ahead of us. Kind of what is your best case scenario? It's $1 million question. When do you think there will be time to, we'll see stabilization a little bit more, going back to not pre-pandemic levels, but when do you think that recovery will happen? And probably you're seeing, I would imagine, seeing different trends by the region as well, or the type of business.
Yes.
So what is your base case scenario? What are the trends that you're seeing?
Well, it's the $1 million question. And definitely the magic bullet. And I'll anecdotally, in the luxury segment, we were fortunate to have seen double-digit leisure rate growth percentage for the 2 years ending at the end of 2019. And demand was soaring in terms of all facets, whether it was the group side, the social catering side, the business travel, and the all precious leisure travel. Well, it's safe to say that we have seen and passed the point of bottoming out, if you will. From my perspective, the return to stabilization is a way off. So we have two sort of key critical measures of performance here. Not only do we have to recover what was lost, obviously adjusting for capacity, the true success is going to be indexing against those metrics and getting better. Now, the United States saw for the week ending May 22nd, the highest occupancy since pre-pandemic, and I fully expect this to continue. As you alluded to, there are certain touchstones, there are certain indicators that suggest that the infrastructure and the labor and most specifically the air travel is coming back. All those obviously are contributory to getting us back to a stabilization. Make no mistake about it, we're still in a book now, please mentality, which is to say, in some cases, we we're willing to forsake a little bit of rate in order to get occupancy. But once the interference, rate should as well. Complemented by feeder market air service into all destinations, again, whether it's a gateway city here in the US or a secondary, tertiary market, and the important return of group. My best case scenario is a return to where we were at the end of 2019 by the end of 2022. Now, the future after that is foggy. The United States is forecasted to add about 250,000 new hotel rooms in the market between now and the end of 2022. So it's unclear, as to the effect that this will have on markets that are ramping up, starting over versus stabilized.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, interesting, we have seen also that maybe because I work right now in the luxury market, we're seeing increase of direct business and also growth in uptake on the suite. So there is the uptake, there is less maybe focus on the rate, but more on the value and experiences. So it's interesting that you're saying that some hotels have been using OTAs to kind of to right now to plug the gap, but also hotels have been reporting the increase of direct business since the beginning of the pandemic. So it could be a really good opportunity to try to capture that more direct business and keep the customers as returning customers. So do you think that there is right now a good time to do that, focus more on direct channels? And do you see the same trends possibly increase in direct business in US, or it's maybe just for the specific segments?
Right, and it's a great question, and again, coming from a similar background, those leisure guests are our greatest commodity, is a complement to the overall strategy. Our stocks and trade, because as you know, that from a performance perspective, from a star perspective, rate through the ARI has got a tremendous opportunity to take up our RevPAR. Yeah. So. Absolutely. I would strongly advocate continuing to treat those direct bookers, whether they're booking from brand.com or through the voice channel, as a most treasured commodity. And so how do we get there? I would say continued flexibility in cancellation and change rules. Even if you're operating in a very seasonal business model, be mindful of that. Obviously the anecdotal reasons for cancellation and for changes are completely different now than they were 2 years ago. And a consistent focus on that leisure segment's gratitude and happiness. Continue to invest in your search engine optimization. Get creative with promotions and packages, and keep a close eye on those TripAdvisor reviews. Get on there immediately and respond. And remember, one of the key indicators, at least in my background, pre-pandemic, was that nearly 70% of guests that ultimately decided to book on your hotel website or who called the hotel went to an online travel site or a review site first. So they are important, and it's a little scarified in terms of the attention and the impressions that those sites are getting, but they still are extremely important. Keep current guests happy. Be attentive is safe, obviously, being penultimate consideration, and always offer to book their next stay when they depart from their current one. Guests obviously are still operating with an incredible modicum of discretion, of hesitancy, and it's incumbent upon us to make things as easy for them as possible. Do that, and they will continue to reward not only with repeat patronage, but mitigated channel costs. The cost per acquisition and the channel cost, as we all know, is extremely attractive from a direct booking perspective.
Yeah, we'll come back to the question of the channel cost.
Sure.
Do you think in a post-pandemic era, will we see the instinct play a still significant role in revenue management, or do you think we will be moving towards more data-driven analytics and strictly just data-driven based decisions?
That is an easy one. I would say, in short, no. We're through the looking glass. And if there was one positive touchstone or takeaway from the last 15 months, it's the benefit of having pressed the reset button, having had an opportunity basically to rebuild our market strategy, our go-to-market strategy, our channel mix, our group to leisure from scratch. On strategy, rebuilding the business, the interflow of everything from brand impressions to the creation of new packages and promotions to channel deployment and management. We rarely get a chance to sort of redo this. And this provided a great opportunity for us to try to do that. Now, the forecast algorithms in our respective revenue management portals have been significantly retooled and re-optimized to weight the historical data and the pace much lower than we had in the past. I mean, always from a revenue management perspective, we looked to the past for some indication and some sort of guidance and some sort of blueprint to see how the future might behave. And that is of very small consideration for the foreseeable future. Put more emphasis on forward-looking, such as booking window, such as cancellation, to really determine the behavior of the consumer and how business is interflowing. Now, while signs do point to a stabilization, we still are operating with an extremely cautious optimism in this outlook. Instinct in terms of deployment and strategy, from my perspective, favors a very salient economy and travel industry. And it sort of becomes something, at least in my world, something of a luxury to be able to make and prognosticate those decisions more based on experience and conjecture than what data was actually telling. My suggestion in this case is to set your house up, for success by punctuating those demand drivers. Whether there was an event that had an undue effect, a positive effect on your occupancy pattern, your cancellations for a certain day. Be specific on your recurring and non-recurring events in your market, and review your rate tiers as well. Whether you operate from a bar system or from a price value model, and then let the system work for you. Ultimately, one of the things to sort of keep front of mind is that's what they do, and that is what hotels and resorts pay for. Validate recommendations, where and when necessary, and do a reality check to be sure. But put the lean on your optimization tool. From an AI perspective and also a deep learning perspective, and the forecasting dynamics. The system is extreme. Our systems are extremely more intuitive, and I don't want to say prescient, but forward-looking in terms of dictating what output and performance is going to look like.
Wow. I don't think the last time I met someone I agreed so much on so many points. Thank you very much for that. You mentioned that direct business is. Go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
No, you mentioned on that the direct business is the most profitable. Is there any other chance you could, what type of business you could point out and say, well, this is where the hotel's business should be focusing on? We talked about the cost of acquisition, and if we compare transient leisure bookings groups, where do you want to think to highlight the draws back and the benefits of each of those segments from cost of acquisition point of view?
Sure. Thank you. I would say that, from my experience in the discipline, there's been an active trend in the last 10 years, maybe 15 years, to evolve the revenue management discipline from strictly rooms profitability to resort and overall profitability. And so that is put the pressure on directors of revenue and revenue managers to not so much look at a piece of business coming through the door as flowing in the rooms division. How will a piece of group business, how will a piece of social catering business, how will a wedding affect the spa? How will it affect the outlets if functions are hosted in the conference space? The effect of a rooms-only group, specifically on your outlet revenue, your spa revenue, could be of due consideration. So let's start small. A group booking. Are you in a position where you're displacing any leisure revenue, or similarly upsetting your loyal leisure guest base? Have you sold into suite categories that you would use up until that point to really optimize rate, even in shoulder periods, that would have an effect on your star performance? How does your catering revenue flow? Does it flow differently than your outlet revenue does? Now, being mindful, finally, of the management of your conference space can really make the difference. To have a tool in your RMS that allows you to quote a possible group coming into the hotel. The effect of shifting one day later or earlier, adjusting rate up or down, can really have a due consideration on whether or not you take it or not. Always keep in mind the fact that taking a group will have some effect on the resort as a whole. in each department in some way, shape, or form, just based upon the carry cost. Right? Again, as I talked about before, if there was a group in-house that has hosted functions, it may have an impact on your 3-meal restaurant, or have an email or an impact on your coffee shop. So like everything else, it's a balance. Arrival and departure, group ceiling, rate, all of course play a part. Transient bookings are a little bit easier to qualify, leisure bookings. And as we talked about before, the holy grail, of course, is the direct bookers. Whether it's a voice booking or brand.com, you have sunk costs, you have opportunity costs that play a part of optimizing on those channels. Of course, if you have travel agent commissions, if you have consortia amenities, if you have wholesale transaction costs or OTA splits, your cost on a leisure booking may approach 30 cents in the dollar. Finding that balance and yielding accordingly based upon your deployment and your RMS can mitigate some of that. And then I'll end with sort of the target as you asked for. And this obviously represents a perfect scenario. Wedding bookings, social catering can be lucrative from a revenue perspective. Notwithstanding the relative intangibles that come with it. Catering revenue flows very well, and whether there is spend on service fees or outside vendors or special activities, the aggregated spend is outstanding. Needless to say, the wedding bookings are non-recurring, and the only theoretical drawback is the impact that a wedding booking might have on non-participating guests. Obviously, from a channel perspective, this is something that strategists, either on the sales side, on the finance side, and on the revenue side, will look at consistently. I will say that a budget, especially in this day and age, is little more than a first forecast. And your ability to sort of change and be as proactive as possible, but get ahead of the trends and deploy accordingly to make sure you're maximizing, again, profitability, not so much just in rooms, but across the board.
Guys, we're done.
Excellent.
And
Yes, we
I
are.
think it was great. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks for the interview. Very, very insightful. Olga, thank you. Thank you, Andrew. And I'll see you soon, guys. Thanks for joining us today. Now is the moment to introduce the next session. Actually, it's going to be an amazing masterclass with my friend Nir from Fornova. So thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Olga. I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So let's introduce quickly the video clip from Nir and start the masterclass.
Hello, my name is Nir Dupler and I'm the CRO at Fornova, and I'm looking forward to see you all at the Revenue Managers, the series.
Good afternoon, Nir. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
We are a little bit late for a couple of minutes, but it's fine. We still have a lot of people.
As long as people surviving the day and enjoying it, and it's all great. I have to say it was really strange to do this selfie video. But yeah, so
that's great. So I'll share your screen so you can start your presentation. Can you?
Yeah, sure.
Here we are.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we see the screen. It's already up.
Great. So thanks everyone. I will start with a quick intro. My name is Nir Dupler. I'm the CRO in Fornova. And I'm probably one of the only people on the call here that didn't grow up in the hospitality industry. I've been mainly in BI technology most of my career, from military intelligence tech to finance and telco BI. And in the last 6 years, as part of Fornova, I've been focusing on hospitality BI. I'm very much of a data geek, as everyone call it around here. I have to say that after working with, for a couple of years with the top OTAs and thousands of hotels, it's actually helped me to see the effect of distribution and marketing on profit optimization and the ability to drive a more direct business. And this is what I want to focus today. It's already end of day. I've been listening during the day, so hopefully I can tell you a few things that you haven't heard already today and share some useful insights. So just before starting, just a couple of words about Fornova. I promised I'm not going to turn this into a sales pitch, so I'm going to keep it less than 10 seconds. Fornova is a leading BI company in the hospitality space. We work with over 20,000 hotels globally and OTAs, and that are basically using our patent technology of gathering online data in high scale.
We strongly believe that data is the core of everything we do, and the quality of the data is what basically determines the quality of the BI. We have about 4 BI solutions around marketing, revenue, and distribution. And if you want to know more, you're welcome to contact me on near@fornova.com or through our website or LinkedIn. That's it. So let's jump in. I want to start with this chart that I actually saw last year and actually really surprised me. This is a survey done by HSM AI with over thousands of revenue managers, asking them how do they measuring their success today. 77.4 said they're measuring their success mainly by looking at the RevPAR. However, 46% of them believe this is not the right measurement, as it doesn't drive any cost optimization. So why are they still using it as the main one? According to the survey, which was immediately the next question, reason number 1, lack of data and lack of BI. Reason number 2, data trust issues. I just want you to keep that in mind as we're going through the rest of the presentation. I think it's a really key point for all of us to learn from. Moving to recovery, yes. So we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, at least in most part of the world. And we are slowly moving from survival mode. This is what was in the last, I would say, 18 months, where we basically let go most of our staff and looked everywhere where can we reduce cost. And we're looking to go back into growth. And we probably all wonder how this growth going to look like, how fast or slow it will be, and how can we be prepared to make the most out of it. One of the answers is obviously technology, and here we can be very optimistic as surprisingly in the last 2 years of the pandemic have pushed more technology adoption across many industries, and we actually in Fornova, we see it clearly also in hospitality. We've seen significant maturity in hotels' technology stack moving much faster than before. So having that in mind, what suddenly makes, we've been talking all day about profit optimization, and why suddenly are we so focusing on profit optimization? Why suddenly this is more important than before? So let's look at the next 3 years of recovery. I think we all understand by now that it's not going to come back in one big bang. It's going to take time. Some of the more optimistic people say 2 years, others say 3 to 4 years. Let's take an average of 2.5 or 3 years. But the main reason is obviously the drop in business and corporate, which will take them more time to come back. The result is that the ADR and RevPAR will continue to be lower than what we used to see in 2019 and before. And unfortunately, there is nothing we can do about that. So sooner we understand that, the better. So if in the past revenue managers, as we've seen in the slide before, we're mainly focused on optimizing the pricing top line. Now, in order to get quickly recovery and make the owners happy, the focus must shift more and more to the bottom line, basically looking at the net RevPAR, or even better at the GOPAR, which takes more operational and distribution into consideration. Talking about expenses and talking about cost, as you all heard during the day, distribution optimization, I believe, and I would be happy to see that I'm not alone here, is probably is the key to meet these challenges. While RevPAR and NDR will continue to stay relatively low in the next couple of years, the relative portion, and we all know the relative portion, as we heard before, of leisure will go up, and the OTA proportion of your distribution mix will go up as well. This will create pressure on your OTA market share, ranking, and visibility, which is key for your demand on the OTA. And that will most likely push you to use more promotions and more products like Prefer, Genius, or Accelerator that will eventually increase more your distribution cost. This means that if you don't want to experience significant drop in profit as a result of that, you must start looking now on how you optimize this cost. Now, looking at a different type of cost, distribution, whether it's direct or marketing or wholesalers, it's probably the only variable cost that can be optimized without damaging your service level. Yes, you can optimize your staff, you can reduce staff, or maybe you can even reduce the number of croissant in breakfast, but this will damage your service and the customer satisfaction, something you want to avoid doing. So one last element before moving into some more kind of actional, kind of to do or not to do insight. I want to talk about the relationship between distribution and marketing and sales. Marketing is distribution. Marketing cost must be part of distribution cost. And again, I was happy to hear many people talking about that during the session today. And because that's something I have to say, I've not seen in many hotels taking that into consideration. They must be managed and they must be synced side by side. More than that, if you think about it, marketing is your only distribution channel that is paid in advance. And it's disconnected from the actual revenue, from the actual booking. Hence, it needs to be extra carefully managed and optimized in order to achieve this cost reduction. In the next couple of slides, this is really where I'm going to focus, and I'm going to dive into that. So how do we optimize distribution? I'm actually getting this question from many of the hotel I'm working with directly, and I can tell you that we have spent many hours with chains like NH and Premier Inn and Marriott and others to study and analyze that. The bottom line is not different than any other business analysis. First, you need to know your business, to know every last detail. And I'm not talking about some Excel files and pickup reports. I'm talking about having a proper BI distribution solution that can do much more a micro advanced segmentation. And I will explain exactly what I mean. Second, you need to understand your current distribution landscape, and yes, including direct. In most cases, and this is really critical, we see direct cost is roughly around 4 to 5%. If you manage it carefully and you have the right solution in place, this is pretty much where you can get to, 4.5%. However, we've seen hotels that easily, when we sit down with them and we review it and we calculate it, you can see that it easily gets over 10% if you don't manage it correctly. And in most hotels doesn't even calculate it today. It's part of the distribution. It's part of the distribution cost. I mean, they're just putting in commission level to pay to OTAs and etc. And this is really critical to pay attention to. Once you have the details, then you need to set the strategy. I've seen a lot of hotels without any proper distribution strategy, or in other words, very flat strategy, focusing only on getting the booking rather than getting the right booking from the right channel. An approach that usually create also unnecessary tension between the different departments and will not help the profit. So it's gather your team, sit down and start talking about planning. Once you have the strategy, you need to enforce it. And you can't enforce it unless you have the right monitoring and technology in place. And this is also something that it's key to understand. Having the right solution in place is the key. It's not just about having a solution. It's about having the right solution for your needs. Your rate shopper, for example, and this is just an example, they need to show you the price of your comp set. But from which point of sale is coming from? Where do you see the prices from? Is it from regional customer or from international? In the last couple of years, and I think that the pandemic have made it even more extreme, we see in our numbers that about 23% of the cases, OTAs will present lower price on local point of sale rather than international. And you need to know it. You don't want to make decisions based on the wrong data. So it's critical that you speak with your rate shopper vendor, whoever it is, to find out from where they're getting the actual shopping and rates, and make sure this is aligned with your needs. And your needs are based on your customers, are based on having this breakdown over here, of knowing for each of diving into your reservation and understanding where they're coming from, how they're broken down between, you know, this country, the city, and broken down to every channel. And when you analyze this, when you micro-analyze this internal data, you need to look into your channel breakdown and micro segmentation and answer this question. Where are my guests coming from? Which channel is contributing the most from which country, which age, which room type, and etc. Only then, when you have this data, we can really start talking about cost per channel and really start calculating that, the cost per channel. Without that, you're just pretty much shooting in the dark. All right. let's go into some more kind of key elements to achieve cleaner and more optimized distribution cost. I'm just going to go through points here. And again, you can feel free to reach out after that and we can dive into more details. I only have 20 minutes here. So first, some key rules that I'm sure you're familiar with. There is no better channel. It's all about strategy and making sure you use each channel in the most optimized way and have the right inventory, including brand.com, which is another channel. Marketing and distribution should be fully aligned and should be carefully monitored together in order to achieve the best result. The last thing you need is for your distribution to run a promotion, for example, on booking.com, going to the extranet, you run a promotion on booking.com without letting your marketing manager know about it. And then it's created a serious parity issue. And this parity issue will immediately affect, it will reduce the marketing conversion, whether it's on Google, on the Meta, on the brand.com, and reducing marketing conversion, very simple, increase your acquisition cost. It will increase your CPA and it will increase your PPC. Another example, which you can see over here, is what we call inventory analysis. And I'm always surprised to see that. Every time we go into a hotel and we start analyzing that, they tell, no, it doesn't happen with us. And then we start analyzing that and we see it does happen. Look at this chart. What you see here is basically the number of cases within the next 90 days. This is some hotel in Dubai that I just took as an example. Within the next 90 days, they have 22 issues where if you as a consumer go to the brand.com site, you will see there is no availability. But if you go to Google, if you go to Booking, there is plenty of availability. How can something like that happen? Many reasons. Technological issues, no software is bulletproof. But the most common thing is LOS restriction. Is someone putting some LOS restriction without making sure this will be also on your brand.com? So these are small things, but these small things adds up. We see today, statistically, that 23% of direct booking are lost due to errors on the hotel brand.com and meta search bidding. These are things that just shouldn't happen. You just need the most basic monitoring in place to just make sure this will not happen, and it can save you a lot of money. High quality and consistency of content, reviews, and parity will give you higher visibility organically and will lead to a lower cost of distribution, both on CPA and PPC. Your organic ranking, both on Meta, Google, and OTAs, are very much directly affected on how you manage your price integrity, how you manage your content and reviews. If you don't have the right quality and the right consistency, then you will pay more on CPA, you will pay more on PPC. And it's actually pretty shocking and surprising to see how linear is the ratio between both. Sometimes even just a better, higher quality video, higher quality picture can actually reduce your PPC cost. And that's quite amazing when you start analyzing that. Some more stuff. So for example, OTAs are offering all these different great products. And I'm saying these are great products for visibility boosters and campaign. But these are great products only if you use this product wisely and based on data. And always calculate the incremental cost of them. Not the cost from the first dollar, but the incremental cost this type of promotion will add. If you use them wisely, they will boost your demand without increasing significantly your cost. If you don't, then you run into a problem. When running promotion on OTA to achieve better ranking, don't start with rate promotion. And this is also a mistake we see a lot. There are so many value-added promotion to start with, such as free upgrades, spending vouchers. There's so many out there, and you would be surprised. I've actually seen the statistics with the OTAs. They've been our partners. We've been sitting with them. I've seen the statistic, and you would be surprised how effective they are. So don't just run quickly and put like a flat a booster commission or whatever, or just reduce the price as a first choice. Don't run flat promotions. The OTAs today give you a way to focus on where you actually need it. Choose specific target dates, choose specific markets and customer type. OTAs allow you to do that, but many hotels, they just don't use it. I've seen them just running promotion flat, everywhere the same. And this will, obviously, this will damage your profitability. There's just no reason to do it when you have such a sophisticated tools you're being offered today. And there are also cheap and free channels out there. Use them more. For example, a few weeks ago, Google have announced they're giving free traffic for hotels, and yet I haven't seen, you know, many hotels just jumping on it to use it. This is free traffic, basically. You can drive CPA on Google for free, in a way, and use directories, dynamic retargeting. I mean, that's just one example. I mean, hotels are just, most of the hotels I've been working with, they're still using static banners, static retargeting, which is about 30% less effective than dynamic retargeting. They cost the same. The traffic will cost you the same, but you're just going to get 30% better conversion, 30% better traffic. And last thing, which is not really related to distribution, but I just had to say it, that I still find it super important, is upsells. We've been working with companies like Premarine, and I can tell you, I mean, if you take them as an example, they don't stop the user journey after the booking. The funnel continue with specific targets to marketing, also after the booking, to increase the profit per customer. So I know it's not related specifically to distribution, but it just, I've seen it and it's so obvious, and it's such a good way to increase your profit. So just use it more. I want to talk about this kind of specific Google example. One very example is that I've seen just too many cases, and I think hoteliers just don't put enough attention here. Since October 2020 to May 2020, we see, to May 2021, mistake here, we see an increase of almost 80%, from 20% to 36% in number of brand bids on Google, which is fantastic. We're really happy to see that hotels understand the power of Meta and Google and drive more direct traffic. However, in 32% of these cases, the brand price was higher than the OTA price on the meta search. Now, that's something that I just couldn't understand. I mean, how do you think when you're doing something like that, you're basically shooting yourself twice, right? You're going to lose the direct booking, and you will pay extra commission to the OTAs, and you're losing conversion. And most cases, the consumer will click, which means you're reducing your conversion, which immediately going to increase your PPC. And the reverse PPC calculation that Google is doing, which means actually it will increase your CPA as well. So, but by looking at this rate integrity, it's not just about your next booking. Rate integrity, it's not just about, you know, making sure you have better price and parity and all of that. It's really immediately related to your cost, related to how much you pay on CPA and how much you pay on PPC. I mean, if you look at these charts, this is an example from a chain in APAC. Okay, it's quite a big chain, one of the biggest chains. And if you look at these statistics, it's just, as you can see, in about 30%, 35, 40% of the cases, their prices on the meta sites are higher than the OTA's price there. It's better not to do, not to bid on the meta than that. And obviously the biggest problem, and everyone are talking about, is the wholesaler leakage and controlling the wholesaler leakage. How you're solving it, we can have a 2-hour discussion about how to solve it. But just, you have to keep that in mind, because just going out there without solving that means you're increasing your cost. So just to summarize quickly, to achieve real optimization without damaging the service, you need to look at these 4 areas together, not separately: marketing, distribution, revenue, and sales. Each one of them have data that can help you make strategic decision about the distribution, that will help you drive higher profit margin. And I will finish. I know I'm running out of time, so I hope you got some good insights here, but I want to finish with this statement from PwC in the latest 2021 report. basically talking about technology. You know, I'm coming from a technological company. I've been in technology, and I believe that it's pretty much the answer for a lot of the challenges. And I wish you all good luck, and hope everyone are wrong, and recovery is going to be super fast, and it's not going to take 2 years.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nir. That was great. I mean, very interesting, your masterclass. I really invite anyone watching it right now to get in touch with Nir through LinkedIn. How can people get in touch with you, apart LinkedIn, of course?
My email at Nir@Fornova.com, or just through our website and or LinkedIn. We will get back to you, and we can have more discussions about distribution, where I think it's a subject that I'm personally very passionate about.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Nir. Really appreciate it. Thanks. I know you will be part, Fornova will be part for some other episode in the coming weeks. So looking forward to meet you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right. This is the end. How was the song from the door? This is the end, right? Hi, Harry. Welcome back. Chris, Diego.
Hi, Enzo. A very interesting day. Yeah, really.
I mean, the audience, I still see a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So we should add another masterclass now. Eddie, do you have something? Come on. You're on mute.
Hey, let me check what we have here. Jill would like to do a masterclass if you want to.
Well, guys, so let's just quickly make a round. And what was your impression today, Federica? Was good, right?
It was very, very good. I think we had a lot of tips and insights from all the speakers. You know, we already read the viewpoints in Hospitality Net, but the discussion of today was a real extension, and we could dig into some aspects of this topic. So it was really, really good also to see which tools can help us to manage and to look at profitability, because without tools, without data, we are lost.
Yes, true. What's your impression, Diego?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think that we need to change, or we need to become profit managers instead of revenue managers. I think that we need to work really hard on that, because if not, our position is going to be redundant in a couple of years. So we need to implement all our cost strategy and have 100% control all our distribution cost. I think that it was mentioned by Nir. The marketing expenses are also are a cost of distribution. So we need to take care of everything in the baseline of the P&L. So we need to make that change in our mindset in order to be more profit oriented than revenue oriented.
Cool. What's your feedback, Chris?
It was a really amazing discussion. Yeah. A lot of very interesting points and opinions. I think one of my favorite panel discussions so far, for sure. For me, the topic is very close to heart. But we need to keep in mind that revenue management always was about profit management. And I'm a little bit concerned that the discussion may drift into, let's come up with a new position and a new title. And once we have a new person and a new title, then we forget all about what it really is about. So that's where the industry really needs to stay focused. Revenue managers are already profit managers. We maybe need to learn a little bit more how to apply these skill sets. But yeah, that's going to be the task for the next little while, I think.
But Christoph, are the revenue managers recognized today in the hotel industry as profit managers?
Revenue managers are not even recognized as revenue managers. When 80% of hotel people don't even know what a revenue manager does and think it's some kind of an accounting position. So I think that it's an adequate time to reinvent that entire role, to remarket the entire role also internally within the organization, to explain to everyone, hey, what is this really about? So that something that we have been talking about for years and years, revenue management culture, can actually start to exist. Because without revenue management culture throughout the entire organization, we're losing out on a huge opportunity. So yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Right. As I see few people still there, guys, would you mind if I share once again the next coming episode dates and time? And let's see you in a few seconds. Right, guys, so I say we are approaching the weekend. Quickly, what is going to be your plan? Henry, what you are going to do this weekend?
You know, I'm part of an association where we produce wine. So I will be working in the vineyard this weekend, not cutting the grapes, but taking care of the vineyard.
Oh, you are going to scratch with your feet, like
No, that's in September.
That's in September. So please make sure you can invite me to join this. I'm a good taster. I'm a good taster.
Hey, but anyway, I just wanted to thank all of you for putting this together. I think we are a great team, and I look forward to the last 3 sessions.
Great. Thank you. What's going to be your plan, Chris, this weekend?
I will, of course, be working on the next episode, which will go live on June 24th.
Haha, that's good news, right? And what about you, Diego? You're on mute.
No, I was saying that, trying to help Chris in that. No, I'm here in Santo Domingo. This is my last weekend here in the Caribbean, so I need to get back to Ibiza. So trying to plan the new forecast for the next quarter. So a lot of work to do.
It'll be hard, eh?
Diego.
Yeah. Since Chris is going to work on the next episode and Diego is going to support him, I think I can take a break for the weekend and I can enjoy, friends and go strolling in the downtown, having aperitifs. So enjoy weekend to start again because you guys are so good. So you don't need further help.
You have done so much. You definitely deserve a break.
Yeah, you deserve it. Tell me, Henry. Yeah,
Diego. So tell me, what would be a good season to come over to Ibiza and have a working session with the group?
Probably when I'm there. So
when you're back.
When I'm back in a couple in 1 week.
No, but the tourists will be coming back to Ibiza as well, no?
Yeah. It's becoming. For the moment, we are in the orange scenario for the UK market. That is hurting us a little bit. But when UK is becoming green, for us it's going to be a really, really nice last pickup or last time pickup. So it's going to be a good summer, taking into account the situation nowadays in the world. So it's going to be, we are going to recover soon.
Good. Hey, have a safe trip back home.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Henry. Thank you.
All right, guys. Have a nice weekend coming, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.